Hello everybody, my name is still Daniil Dubov and this is my recap of the game 4, where Ding played white and started the game with English opening, 1 c4, knight f6, knight c3, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and he played e3 instead of the most popular move g3. e3 though is quite a popular one too, so it shouldn't be a big surprise. Bishop b4, queen c2, bishop takes c3, bc3, castles. Jan started with d6, you can also start with castling d6, e4. Is a very, very popular position, popular line, where many interesting games were played. Some of them were actually played by Ding's second Richard Rapport. I personally don't quite get why Black is exactly forced to play this whole sequence with bishop b4, taking d6 and castling, but okay, there's nothing wrong with that either. Ding played bishop e2. And Jan went for this knight h5, which I think is hard for me to guess, but I think he has simply mixed up something. My guess would be that they wanted knight h5 in the lines after, let's say, d3, knight h5, bishop e2, and then compared to the game, white will not get this d2, d4 in one go. So after knight h5, Ding played d4, which is a very, very good sound positional idea. And then Black basically has to either play knight f4 or kind of accept the fact that knight h5 was not all that smart. Queen f6 was also reasonable there instead of knight f4, which Jan played. Then white has many options, but even d5, knight b8, and something like g3 leaves white with a very, very pleasant edge. Something like bishop g4, knight h4, takes will happen, and then white will eventually start pushing his pawns on king side, and he's also free rolling. Basically, there is nothing to attack in his position. The pawn on c4 can only be attacked by one knight, and the knight from h4 can come to h3 and protect it nicely. White will go bishop d2, maybe even castle long, and start this f4, g4 breaking through ideas. Still, it was probably a better option. Jan played knight f4, which is at least logical, and following up knight h5, it's a very, very natural thing to do. Bishop takes f4, e takes f4, castles. It's funny that Rapport played h4 here, I think about 10 years ago, and they were both asked if they knew that, and obviously they didn't, which is not a surprise at all. Like normally you cannot follow all the games that were played within last dozen of years. So Ding was on his own from this point, as he said, and he played castles. Queen f6. Queen f6 is reasonable, you need to develop the pieces somehow. Rook f2 e1, which is also normal, rook e8. And here Ding played bishop d3, which I think is a little mistake. White had two better options here. So one of them is actually what engine wants, but it's kind of crazy. So the engine wants rook a d1, which, once again, it looks reasonable itself, and you can say, well, why not to bring the rook into the game? But the problem is that there is queen g6. And the pawn on e4 is hanging, and you cannot really protect it the normal way, as if you go bishop d3, then there is bishop h3, forcing bishop f1. And then after bishop g4, let's say Black is completely fine. I think Black is, in general, happy to get this bishop takes f3, g takes kind of position. So here, like, the engine's point is queen c1, attacking the pawn on f4. Now, okay, queen takes e4 clearly doesn't work because of this, for instance. But what's wrong with rook takes e4, you might ask? Bishop d3 looks reasonable with the idea of the back rank mate, but it actually doesn't work, as bishop h3 is still there. And now bishop f1 is strange, as we don't have a threat anymore, and knight h4 runs into this. And the bishop is hanging. So actually, to play this queen c1, you need to realize that after rook takes e4, it's queen b1 that is the move, which is completely insane to me. So the point is that basically now if you pass as Black, the threat is knight h4 followed by d5, and you need to go to e6 to protect the rook. And if you touch the bishop, then there is queen takes b7. So rook e7 is pretty much the only move here. And then after bishop d3, queen f6, bishop takes h7, king f8, bishop e4. White is quite a lot better. But yeah, playing this queen c1, queen b1 sequence is normally not what you can expect. So the human alternative, though, was to play c4, c5, which in the game Dink managed to get in a better version even. But the point is pretty much the same. So after d takes c5, White just plays e5, and then after something like queen h6, he simply plays queen e4, and he has a lot of compensation for the pawn. First of all, Black will spend quite a lot of time trying to defend this pawn on f4. Secondly, White has this nice pawn center. At some point, he will play d5. Once you touch the bishop, some rook b1 will be unpleasant too. Let's say, I don't know, you go bishop d7, rook b1. You don't really want to play b6, weakening your light squares even more. So this was a very decent alternative too. Also, rook ad1 is even better. The problem with Dink's move bishop d3 is that after bishop g4, which Jan played, and knight d2, White cannot really get c4, c5 with this kind of setup. So after something normal like rook a to d8, Black is actually okay, is my impression, as whenever you go c5, after d takes c5, let's say e5, queen h6, White is just not in time to stabilize his pawn center. Basically, this pawn is attacked too many times and you cannot protect it. So there is no c5, and then it's kind of hard to come up with a plan for White. I mean, you can try something, but in general, let's say, I don't know, h3, bishop goes somewhere, maybe even h5, rook b1, Black will probably play b6. Then it's kind of hard to actually figure out what the ideas could be for White. Jan played knight a5 instead, and yes, he told us at the press conference, he really underestimated this whole c4, c5 idea, which Dink, thanks to this a couple of inaccurate moves, he actually managed to get it even in a better version, as after taking e5, queen h6, the queen goes to h6 to protect the pawn on h7, and d5, White got a very, very nice position with this knight on e5 basically being in offside, and there are not too many ways for Black to actually attack those pawns, like c3, c4 will happen. White has a very, very solid center. White is clearly better, and Black basically has to sit and wait, which doesn't mean it's that bad. So the game continued logically. Jan played rook a to d8 finally, c4, he played b6, which is also logical with the idea of bringing the knight to b7 and then potentially maybe d6 after f6, e6 inclusion. h3, bishop h5, bishop e4. Bishop e4 is a normal move. White is preventing just in case he wants to play something like queen c3, for instance, but he's preventing some f4, f3 just to make sure no bad things happen here. So bishop e4 is a nice move. The tactical point is rook takes c5, bishop takes h7 check, followed by winning an exchange and eventually the game quite easily. So Jan played rook e7, which is also normal. So basically as Black, you kind of want to stabilize somehow. You want to attack e5 as many times as possible, and when White defends it, you will basically sit and wait. Queen c3, rook e8, bishop f3, knight b7, rook e2. So here they faced another sort of critical moment. As the way I see it, it's hard to figure it out during the game, but the way I see it, and it seems to be improved by an engine, it's actually good for White to trade the bishops here. So it was better to take on h5, and after queen takes h5, White plays knight f3. The point is that basically at some point with the bishops or without the bishops, White will anyway have to try to attack the pawn on f4 to provoke g5, and then he will try to make use of this weakening the king. So basically normally to attack this pawn on f4 you need some moves like rook e4, which are much easier to get without this bishop pair. So unlike in this variation, in the game after rook e2, Jan played f6, e6, knight d6, rook a to e1. Once again, it was probably better to take. But here, let's say after rook a to e1, bishop g6 was the move. And then White is clearly still better. Black has to sit and wait, and it's clearly a very unpleasant spot for Black to be in. But it's not that White has like an obvious plan. The engine says White is better, and yeah, at least in my analysis, I failed to come up with any kind of a real plan for white. You can, shuffle the pieces. You can try to play bishop g4 at some point, or you try some knight f1, knight h2, knight g4 ideas. But in general, white really needs to attack the pawn on f4 to get this game going. And with the bishops on the board, it's way harder to do. Still, I mean, it's hard to figure it out over the board, and yeah, clearly, it's not that knight f5 is a blunder. It's just that Dink actually managed to realize, given the second chance, that it is actually a very good idea to trade bishops. And Jan failed too, but it's not an obvious thing at all. Like, I'm smart with an engine, but I'm not sure there is such an easy way of figuring it out over the board. So queen takes h5 happened, rook e4, exactly as we mentioned before. White is attacking the pawn on e4, queen h6, queen f3, and here this like the only really big mistake of the game happened. Jan played knight d4, which is basically straight dead loss for black. Good or bad, he had to try g5, and then after something like g4, knight d6, once again we get this position that is clearly better for white. Black basically has to sit and wait. Like, even if you play something like king g2, I checked it, black cannot even really take on e4. Well, he can, but it does not improve his position, as after knight takes, it only improves white's odds. There is a plan with rook h1 followed by h4, and then h takes and rook h5. There is also a cute idea which I liked a lot. Let's say black passes, just in terms of ideas, white can play knight c3, and then, like, you play some moves, white plays knight b5, and then after a6, you actually get to c6 via a7, which is a strange route, but it is a very, very dangerous idea. And if you start with a6 at some point to prevent knight b5, then once again, in terms of ideas, white can play a4, and then it's either you go a5 and this whole knight b5, knight a7 thing is back. Black also has to watch out for knight takes c7 followed by d6, by the way. Or you wait and then white plays a5 at some point. You cannot really allow a, b, c, b, as then the pawn will promote, so you have to take. And then after knight a4, knight takes c5, white will just move the knight back, go c5 and d6 eventually. So it is not a fairy tale at all. Knight takes c4 would be a mistake, though black has to play something like queen g6. White still has plans with rook h1 and h4. I don't know how bad it is for black actually, but what I'm certain about is that you cannot really skip moves. Like, if you keep waiting, you will somehow lose. So basically here, for instance, the engine wants h5, preventing h4 this weird way. And the tactical point is that after taking queen h6 and h4, black actually has g4, and after queen takes g4, there is rook g7. But white is not in rush. White doesn't need to do that. You can even play rook e2 first, just to make sure you're not blundering your rook, and then you shuffle around with this rook h1 and h4. Once again, the position is better for white. I'm pretty sure it's not yet lost objectively, but black has to be very, very precise. He's basically trying to prove that this position is a fortress, which is not too likely with so many pieces on the board. And normally in a practical game, of course, like, at some point you'll make a mistake and white will break through. Still, objectively, g5 was of course the move, and objectively black is not even much worse. It's just something like 0.5 at the edge and sense, which means with the best defense, black will probably survive this. Jan played knight d4 instead, which is just a very, very big mistake, and we can even call it a blunder, I guess. People sometimes use the sword in the wrong way when people just play bad moves because of the wrong, estimation of the position, but Jan just said he straight blundered rook takes d4 followed by knight b3, and clearly, I mean, at this level, I mean, you don't need to be too brilliant to actually figure out that after knight takes d4 followed by knight c6 or knight f5, you're just dead lost, and after c5 there is, for instance, d6. Even d takes c6 is winning, but the easiest way is d6, rook takes c6, queen d5, and then you can protect the rook with f5 or queen king f7. But yeah, anyways, there is d7 winning the game. So Jan played g5 instead. Knight takes d4, queen g6, and yeah, this is basically a dead loss for black, and white is not even in rush. It's just statically lost. Dink played g4, which is a very, very good move, securing this very nice outpost on f5 for his knight. Jan took, f takes g3, h5, the knight came to f5, rook h7, queen e4. Another good move, creating the threat of knight e7 check, followed by queen takes g6. So king h8 is the only move not to resign immediately. And here Dink played e7, which is a very, very energetic way to finish the game. It's funny that like at the same time as they were playing, I was having a lecture with kids, and like at some points we would look at the game and ask them, all right, white is winning, so what is the plan? What is the plan for him? So how do you finish the game? And one of the kids came up with a brilliant idea of, let's say, playing rook f1, playing queen d4. Black basically has to sit and wait, like whenever he goes g4, you go h4. And then he said, you know, I'm actually going to bring the king all the way to b5 and c6. And the fact that actually I failed to like really come up with a refutation of that shows how bad black's position is. Dink played d7 instead, which is probably less creative, but just straight winning. Queen f7, d6, very straightforward play. Like otherwise, white just gets queen e6 followed by queen d7. So d6, c takes d6 is a must. Knight takes d6. Now queen takes c7 runs into knight takes c8, and white is just a free piece up. So Jan played queen j8 to at least keep the material equal, but after takes, and queen e6, white is completely dominating, and he is not even material down. So it's clearly a matter of time when black will lose some material again. Rook f1, another nice move, making sure the rook leaves 7th rank, where like potentially it could attack the pawn on e7. Rook h6, rook d1, preparing rook d8. f5 is the only move to stop that. Queen e5 check. Now again, king f7 is the only move to stop rook d8, as there is queen takes e7 then. Queen takes f5. You cannot really take on e7 because of rook e1 check and a billion of other reasons. So rook f6 was played, queen h7 check. King e6 is the only move. Queen g7. And yeah, you cannot do much. Queen takes e7 runs into rook e1 check. Rook e1 check is a big threat anyway. Jan played rook g6 and resigned after queen f8, as after queen takes e7 there is rook e1 check, and after rook g8, white can choose between you know, the sort of aggressive rook d8 and stylish queen takes g8, rook d8, which are both winning, basically leaving him with an extra rook. So this is why Jan resigned. It feels to me that the momentum in the match is clearly on Dink's side now. The roles are completely reversed. Now it's Dink who won a game before a free day, and it's Jan who will have to spend his free day being upset after losing a game. So the match proves to be back and forth indeed. And come join us the day after tomorrow to finally find out what happens next. See you guys.